As Setsuna lay broken on the ground, he stared at the world he'd failed to save. It felt inevitable, and you have to wonder, had humanity already lost this war? Vidra just sneered, declaring their struggle completely pointless. But Setsuna refused to believe it was over. With his last drop of strength, he threw a punch. Just a simple punch at Vidra, and to his own shock, the attack actually connected. It barely phased the death god, but it worked. He couldn't believe his eyes. A low-level combat punch actually landed, and the death god's power couldn't just erase it. But it was too late. Setsuna's body was at its absolute limit. He knew he was done for. Vidra prepared to land the final, killing blow. The death god taunted him, saying playtime was officially over, but just then. The pendant around Setsuna's neck began to glow, a gift from his headmaster. He remembered his master's words. It was the Emblem of Resurgence. Inside it housed the very spirit of the tower. Now here's the key. The pendant offered a chance to undo one single past regret. Back then, Setsuna had thought nothing of it. He'd never regretted a thing. He'd never thought he'd need it. His headmaster saw his confidence and simply smiled. As expected from our academy's top graduate, he'd said, but remember, a day may come when you will need this more than anything. Setsuna's thoughts stopped. His one regret was not choosing the path of a close combat mage that day. Next time, he swore, I will definitely defeat you, Vidra, and suddenly, he was back in a familiar classroom, jolting awake from a deep sleep. A sharp hit from his friend Leo snapped him out of it. It's your turn, Leo said. Setsuna was stunned to see him. He remembered Leo vanishing long before the death god arrived. He looked around and the realization hit him. He was back at the Mage Academy. It was real. He had somehow traveled 10 years into the past. Let that sink in. He's back on the day of his defeat with a chance to change everything. Leo pushed him again, asking why he was spacing out in the middle of the ritual. The ritual of choice. Setsuna snapped back to reality and walked to the front. Several teachers and the headmaster were standing there, waiting for him. A girl in the crowd whispered to her friend that the legendary Setsuna was up. The other girl added that he had an aptitude for almost every type of magic. The teacher in front of him opened a book, and it glowed with a soft light. Setsuna remembered this moment well, all the different paths of magic, each with its own spells. Once a mage chose their specialty, it was almost impossible to learn spells from other schools. It was like trying to practice two completely different religions at the same time. The man prompted him, choose the path you wish to specialize in. The mage then showed off his own skills, confident in his display. He was sure Setsuna would pick his path, but this time Setsuna knew better. In his past life, he chose ranged magic, the logical, powerful choice. It was all about creating elements, using mana to fire spells at your enemies from afar. This path allowed mages to keep a safe distance, minimizing all risk. Plus, its wide area spells could wipe out entire armies in one go. If he chose ranged magic again, he'd become the strongest mage, but he knew the truth. The strongest still wasn't enough to beat a death god, so as he turned away, everyone froze. Leo watched in shock, wondering what he was doing, and you and I both know this choice changes the world. You and I both know he should pick ranged magic, right? Well, watch this. Setsuna chose melee magic, which looked like the most useless option on the board. The instructor explained it just strengthens the physical body. It was an outdated style, only good if you were fighting face to face. He painted a picture. Imagine being attacked by a swarm of arrows with only a single rock to defend yourself. He asked Setsuna if he was really trying to ruin his own future. Setsuna knew it was true. By picking melee magic, he was throwing away any chance of becoming a famous mage. But this was the only power that could help him defeat the death god. He couldn't give up on that single thread of hope. The room went dead silent. Everyone just watched as he confirmed his choice. They were absolutely stunned, but Setsuna was determined. With this power, he would take down the death god. As he locked it in, a collective gasp went through the crowd, and the students started whispering. Silas, the head of ranged magic, snapped his book shut with a sigh. He muttered that he had Setsuna's entire future planned out, assuming he'd choose ranged magic. In his mind, Setsuna would have become the greatest mage ever, bringing fame and glory to Silas as his master. But Setsuna didn't care about the murmurs around him. He knew that Silas's grand plans were worthless, and here's the secret that changes everything. The world only had 10 years left before total destruction, and the death god would show up in just 5. But even with all the memories from his past life, Setsuna had zero actual experience in melee combat. He had no choice. He had to master this style completely within 5 years. After the ceremony was over, all the students were told to head back to their magic departments. But Setsuna had no idea where his classroom was. He looked around for Leo, but he was nowhere in sight, so he decided to ask a boy nearby for help, but the guy walking with a girl just brushed him off, saying they were late. Setsuna looked around at the other students. They were either already leaving or just ignoring him, whispering in their little groups. He realized then that this was going to be a long, lonely road. But he was ready for it. A kid nearby snickered that the rumors about Setsuna being a prodigy must be fake. That he was actually a total fool. Another guy chimed in, guessing Setsuna just wanted to be the center of attention, which was why he chose melee magic. And just like that, you and I are watching him become the academy outcast. Setsuna couldn't believe how differently everyone was treating him now. He realized it was all because of his choice. He decided to find a map, remembering there was one of the whole academy in the central garden. As he walked, he heard the crackle of a fireball and knew a fight was happening. A girl was defending herself, putting out the fireball with ease. She then got in a boy's face, demanding he give back the item her mother gave her. It was 3 against 1. The biggest of the bullies was holding a brooch. He smugly said it was an artifact that held mana. A second boy sneered, saying it was a waste on a commoner like her and that they could put it to much better use. Setsuna immediately sized up the situation. The girl was from his department. Melee magic, fighting against 3 students from the ranged magic department. The bully in charge raised his hand to attack, mockingly telling the girl if she wants her brooch back, she's gonna have to take it from them with her useless melee magic. He then attacks again with a barrage of fireballs. The girl fires back, activating her physical boost, a core skill of melee magic, supercharging her physical abilities. But while an enhanced body helps her dodge, it's pretty useless if the guy is completely out of her range. Still, she summons the power her mother saved for years just to get her that brooch. She asks if they really thought she'd just hand over something so precious without a fight. She forms a mana blade, and Setsuna instantly recognizes the technique. But he seriously doubts it's enough to take on all 3 of them. The ranged magic punk mocks her, saying she's shaking in her boots and wonders if she can even reach him with that tiny blade. He blasts another fireball, forcing her to stumble backward. He taunts her, saying it's just like he thought, she can't even lay a finger on them. Then, with a twisted smirk, he launches another one, asking if that isn't the perfect metaphor for her entire pathetic life. And as the fireball is about to hit her, Setsuna flashes forward, pulling the girl out of the way. And trust me, this is where it all changes. He asks if she knows where the melee magic classroom is and can show him the way. One of the bullies realizes it's Setsuna, who just intervened, guessing he must have picked melee magic too. The leader just smirks, saying this is great news. Now he can crush Setsuna whenever he wants. But Setsuna stands his ground, calm, admitting he knows melee magic is seen as weak, but since he chose it, he'll find a way to make it work. He adds that a battle's outcome isn't just about the type of magic a person uses. The girl, terrified for him, begs him to stop, reminding him they're seniors and he could get seriously hurt. But the bully attacks, firing off a volley of fireballs. It's already too late. Setsuna focuses, using physical boost to pour all his mana into his legs. He shoots forward, weaving through the fireballs with absolutely insane speed. He thinks to himself, this is easy, but then he wonders. What if he tries something a little more interesting? He notices the guy is only using fireballs, which probably means that fire is the only element the idiot can control. The bully screams at him to shut up, furiously asking how Setsuna is moving that fast. He swears he won't lose to him. The guy, now completely enraged, forms an even bigger fireball with both hands, ready to unleash everything he's got. Setsuna, however, just summons a sword from his mana and slices right through the fireball, leaving everyone completely stunned. Now pay attention here. The girl's eyes go wide. Is it even possible to just cut a spell in half? Setsuna explains that a fight between mages always comes down to one thing: mana control. He remembers how even without huge reserves, his pinpoint precision made him one of the absolute best. He feels this spell has more potential than he first thought and wonders what would happen if he combined that speed with some serious power. The bully just grinds his teeth, vowing he's about to deliver an even more powerful attack. The fat dude warns him to stop, while the other guy says if their leader keeps this up, a teacher is gonna show up. But he ignores them, telling them not to stop him. He begins to charge up. As the bully starts chanting, "Stick with me here," Setsuna rushes in, closing the gap instantly. And boom, a swift, powerful mana fist connects, sending the kid flying backwards. He stumbles back, and Setsuna just clenches his fist, feeling the raw power in it. He thinks just how useful this is for close combat, while another bully watches in shock. Isn't melee magic supposed to be the weakest? The only difference here is Setsuna. How in the world did he get so strong? Setsuna then demands the brute back. The chubby kid reluctantly hands it over. He knows it's best not to push things further. The other two just grab their injured friend and get out of there. Setsuna returns the brute to the girl, telling her that it's clearly precious to her. She squeezes his hand in gratitude and introduces herself as Illa Rosel. She gives him a warm greeting and even extends her hand for a formal handshake. As they shake, she swings his arm energetically, saying she knows all about him. He's famous for having an affinity for every single path of magic, so she has to ask, why did he choose melee magic? Setsuna pauses for a moment, knowing the truth. He knows she would never believe him, so instead he asks where their classroom is. Illa suddenly remembers the orientation for new students probably already started. Realizing they're late, they both dash off toward the building as fast as they can. Setsuna can't help but feel this is unfair. It's located in the most remote part of the entire academy. As they run, Illa asks if he can teach her that mana blade, the one he used earlier. He explains he simply applied his ability to control magic. He realizes it should be possible to create all sorts of new techniques this way. Just by applying his precise control in different ways, he could invent combat methods. Magic disintegration doesn't seem to work on this technique, so with enough skill. Now pay attention, because once he masters melee magic, he can finally face the death god. That's his real goal, to prepare for the inevitable invasion. His mind flashes back. He's taken back to the past, to a moment he was having tea with the headmaster. The headmaster had removed his gloves, revealing 2 seals for advanced magic. Setsuna was completely stunned. He recognized the symbol on the headmaster's right hand. It was the mark for the powerful school of summon magic, but there was another seal. A mysterious symbol on his left hand that Setsuna had never seen in his life. As he was about to ask, the headmaster promised he would explain everything later on. He told Setsuna he trusted him with this secret, but Setsuna never got to hear it. Because soon after the death god's arrival, the headmaster was assassinated. The killer was the death god himself, who was terrified of the headmaster's power. Setsuna believes that if he can only uncover the secret of that second magic path, you and I both know it could be the one power strong enough to change the world's fate. Back in the present, Illa leads him to a building, announcing that they've finally arrived. Setsuna is left wondering how he's supposed to get the headmaster's attention now. Especially with melee magic, their instructor is already being incredibly critical. Setsuna wasn't even late, but showing up with a girl seems to have made things worse. Illa starts to explain the situation, but the instructor immediately cuts her off. He sneers that the days of Setsuna getting by on his good grades are officially over. Stepping closer, the instructor reminds Setsuna of his new status in the academy. He's now part of the Melee Magic Division, the academy's official group of outcasts. Annoyed, Setsuna brushes his hand aside, and trust me, things are about to get real. All right, stick with me here. He asks why a melee magic instructor would trash the very path he's supposed to be teaching. Naturally, the instructor gets furious and grabs Setsuna by the collar, demanding to know how he dares talk back to him. Setsuna. He's not even fazed, saying melee magic has huge potential. That's precisely why he picked this class. The instructor scoffs, wondering how long Setsuna can keep up the tough guy act. Turning away, he issues a challenge. If Setsuna really believes in his craft, he's gotta prove it. Nearby, a group of students are trying to crack open a massive stone with magic. One kid stumbles back, realizing his attack didn't even leave a mark. The instructor screams at the class, asking what they think they're doing. This is their first test to gauge their skill levels. He explains that inside every rock is a crystal about the size of a fish. Their job, get it out before time runs out. And yeah, failure means punishment. The clock is ticking down, and none of the students have even made a dent. One of them starts complaining that the rocks are just way too hard. A girl wonders how they're even expected to pass when they've literally just started. Another dude whispers that the instructor's just taking out his anger on them because he didn't get that promotion he wanted. And now, you and I are about to see him make a huge mistake. He points to the largest rock and challenges Setsuna to show everyone what melee magic is really made of. The catch, he only has 10 minutes. Illa is horrified, pointing out that rock is way bigger than the others and 10 minutes is impossible. The instructor just smirks, points to the timer, and notes that a whole minute has already ticked by while they were busy talking. Setsuna just steps forward, placing one hand on the rock's surface. The instructor scoffs again, asking if he seriously thinks he can pull this off. He even mockingly offers more time if Setsuna begs. But Setsuna just looks at him and says he'll get it done in 10 seconds. The instructor is stunned silent. Even Layla tells him not to be ridiculous. The instructor thinks to himself, this rock isn't just huge, it's also incredibly dense. It would take me at least 30 minutes just to crack it. But Setsuna isn't bluffing. He said 10 seconds. He meant 10 seconds. With a look of pure focus, he summons a melee weapon into his hand. If he wants to get the headmaster's attention, he has to become the #1 melee magic student. No hesitation, he slashes at the stone, knowing he can't afford to waste time on a pointless test. For a second after the hit, absolutely nothing happens. The instructor, Zachary, shouts out that he knew it. He says that while Setsuna has potential, he's still just a rookie, and then the entire stone shatters. Setsuna casually hands the purple crystal to the instructor, remarking that he was right about the 10 seconds. Zachary is speechless, and Illa can't believe her eyes either. She's just wondering how Setsuna managed to pull the crystal out so cleanly. The other students are freaking out. Some start whispering that Setsuna might actually be stronger than their instructor. One kid even asks out loud if he's more powerful than Zachary. But what does the instructor do? He dismisses it all, accusing Setsuna of using some kind of cheap trick, claiming that 10 minutes wouldn't be enough to break a rock that dense. There was no way he did it fairly. Setsuna responds. I scold, saying that if it took Zachary, stick with me, because this 10-minute challenge is about to blow up in this teacher's face. Zachary, fuming at the comment, is about to retort when everything gets interrupted. Another teacher, Lionel, shows up and grabs Zachary right by the collar. He asks if Zachary is busy bullying students, then lets out a big yawn. Turns out all of Zachary's yelling actually woke him up from a nap. He clarifies that Setsuna didn't cheat, he simply sensed the mana flow inside the rock. Then he struck it at its absolute weakest point. Lionel tears into Zachary. Wondering how an instructor could be so ignorant, he turns to the students and announces that Zachary will now be demonstrating the mana guard. Lionel takes a battle stance, saying since Zachary is so confident in his skills, he's sure this little demonstration won't kill him. Now pay attention, because this is pure karma. Zachary, now looking terrified, starts to protest, but Lionel just shoves him, sending him crashing right into the building wall a good distance away. Setsuna realizes Lionel just broke through Zachary's mana guard with zero effort. Recognizing Lionel's incredible power, he's then clapped on the back by the man himself. Lionel praises his impressive skill, saying it's more than enough for melee magic. And that Setsuna doesn't need to push himself so hard, but our boy firmly disagrees. He declares that he has no intention of losing to any other department in the school. He's going to be the top student and surpass every single one of them. Lionel just chuckles at his determination. That's the spirit, he says. He asks if there's any particular spell Setsuna wants to learn, offering to teach him. He thinks to himself that this kid's mindset reminds him of a previous student. He muses that Setsuna might one day represent the whole department. But for now, he's a rival who can't be underestimated. He introduces himself. Lionel declares he is the head instructor of the melee magic department. And today, even though it's early, they're selecting their school representative. The intramural contest is a massive competition between all the students. A battle between the 8 magical departments, each one fighting for honor. Every department selects its best representative, and these chosen few will face off in a huge tournament, and you and I both know who's aiming for the top spot. Setsuna remembers that before he traveled back in time, he actually won the contest. But he won it for the ranged magic department, earning the headmaster's trust. And that's exactly why he wants to become the representative again. That's when Setsuna notices a fortified rock sitting nearby. Lionel informs him that another student has already extracted a crystal from it. And he did it using only his bare fist. Both pieces of rock came from this one guy. That student, Drago, approaches Setsuna and calls out to him directly. He demands to know why a prodigy like him joined the melee magic department. Setsuna simply replies that he has his own reasons for needing to learn it. Drago scoffs at the answer, raising his voice so everyone can hear. He asks what Setsuna thinks he can accomplish with such a frail-looking body. Drago then reveals his family has studied melee magic for generations, and that he has been through intense physical training for 17 years. He suddenly unleashes his power, punching the air with enough force to shake the ground. With a smug expression, he strikes at Setsuna's face, and that's where things are about to get real. Him to a duel, declaring that if Setsuna wanted to be the representative, he had to prove his strength and determination first. You and I both know Setsuna reminded Drago the intramural contest was about skill. And as the only renowned student in the melee magic department, he was already a contender, but he agreed to the duel anyway before things escalated. Lionel stepped in, announcing the duel would be officially scheduled 1 week from that day. Drago, clearly annoyed, warned Setsuna not to even think about backing out, telling him to fight honorably if he dared call himself a melee mage. As Drago stormed off, one of the onlookers wondered who could possibly win. While the girl was confident in Drago's victory, Illa turned to Setsuna, asking if he was really sure he could beat him. Setsuna just shook his head, thinking that Drago's body, tempered through years of brutal training, was way too much for him to handle right now. Still, he walked off, believing there had to be a way. Puzzled, Illa asked where he was headed. Curiosity got the better of her, and she followed him. They trekked deep into the forest, stopping before a gigantic tree. Illa had no idea what was going on. But watch this, Setsuna touched the tree, revealing his secret training ground. Whenever he trained here, his strength would increase threefold. Illa could only say that it was an incredible tree. Setsuna explained this was the world tree, rooted here for millennia. A green light then erupted from the tree, enveloping Setsuna, accepting him as one of its own. He too was bathed in that same light. Illa asked about the glow, and Setsuna explained it was the blessing of the world tree, granting accelerated recovery to anyone it accepted. He remembered finding this place before he traveled back in time. With the tree's blessing, he wouldn't have to worry about running out of mana. Now he could enter different worlds and undergo training that pushed him right to his physical breaking point. Illa was amazed, but she also knew that Drago had been a melee mage since birth. She felt a powerful need to repay Setsuna for her brooch, so she decided to help by spying on Drago. The scene cuts to the melee magic training room, where a few students, including Drago, were working out. Illa walked around, observing. Drago was performing exercises with an insane amount of weight. After he finished, he asked Lionel if there were any fortified rocks left. Lionel shot back, asking if Drago planned on smashing every last one. Drago casually replied that he wasn't smashing them, he was just borrowing them. He then placed a huge amount of weight on his back and started doing push-ups. I mean, look at this. Illa watched in pure shock, wondering if Drago was even human. She questioned his immense strength and wondered if a single punch would be enough to challenge Setsuna. She researched if Setsuna could even hold his own against a monster like Drago. Meanwhile, Setsuna was just sitting under a tree, reading a martial arts manual. Illa rushed over, telling him this was no time to be reading. Drago was doing push-ups with 5 fortified rocks stacked on his back. Setsuna agreed that Drago was incredible, but pointed out that such intensity was just a normal level for physical training. He calmly told her there was no need to worry. This was all part of his own training. Her eyes widened with curiosity as she asked what he meant. Setsuna explained it was a spell called Physical Bodybuilder, and trust me, that changes everything. It strengthened the body, giving him greater control over his nerves by channeling mana. Concentrate mana in the legs, you could increase leg strength. In your fists, you'd gain way more power in every strike. And if focused on the brain, it enhances memory, but stick with me, he just tossed the book aside. He tells her he's already memorized all the techniques, and now he's eager to test them out. He spots a fallen leaf and with a swift kick, uses his power to cut it clean in half. He even creates a blade of force to slice through the other leaves. Illa can't believe how incredible it is, or how quickly he picked up those moves. But Setsuna just says it isn't nearly enough. And then a sharp pain shoots through him, forcing him to his knees. Now watch this, a wound just appeared on his hand, out of nowhere. Setsuna just assures her that he's fine. Then a green light from the world tree envelops him, and he explains that with the physical boost, he's intentionally pushing his muscles to their absolute breaking point. He can focus on recovery, which forces his body to grow stronger and heal faster. The wound heals right before their eyes, and Illa asks if he really has to go that far. Setsuna says he can't possibly catch up to Drago with normal training methods. Drago has spent way more time honing his skills than he has. With only a week until the duel, Setsuna is determined to repeat this entire process 1,000 times. Illa is shocked, asking how he could go through training that tough even once, let alone 1,000 times. Setsuna answers that it's not about being perfect. When he's training, he remembers the days he couldn't even wield a drop of magic. He dedicated himself to training every day, even when he failed again and again. He never gave up on himself and just kept growing, improving little by little. He could endure because as long as he knew he was getting better, the pain was bearable, and you and I have to respect that grind. Afterwards, the two of them continued training together. And during their rests, Illa just thought about him. People always said he was born with talent. But in reality, he worked harder than anybody else. Right now, he's lifting an enormous amount of weight while doing push-ups. Finally, the day of the duel arrives. Setsuna stands against Drago on the battleground as a huge crowd watches them. Drago comments that it's good Setsuna didn't run away to hide. Setsuna fires back that he wouldn't. He truly wants to be the representative for the department. Illa asks if they're both ready, and as they glare at each other, she signals the duel to begin. Setsuna immediately rushes in to attack Drago. Setsuna throws a mean left hook straight at Drago, who blocks it by using his hands as a shield. But despite the defense, Drago gets pushed back from the impact alone. Setsuna realizes that Drago had to use the Malagard just to block the attack. Drago instantly retaliates with a punch so powerful that the pressure from it hits the audience, leaving them unable to even see the attack coming. Illa is terrified for Setsuna. As the dust from the battle begins to clear, it's revealed that Setsuna had effortlessly dodged the punch. The students are completely stunned, wondering if these two guys really just went through the ritual of choice only a week ago. Setsuna tells Drago that if the punch had landed cleanly, he definitely would have been done for. But he's taken some damage. Drago, visibly frustrated, throws a flurry of punches. Setsuna just blocks and dodges every hit, which only fuels Drago's rage. He growls, asking if defense is all Setsuna's got. Pay attention here, folks. He even mocks him for having such a weak-looking body. Illa worries that a week of training just wasn't enough to beat Drago. Even Lionel admits it looks like Setsuna's been losing from the very start. Drago throws another heavy kick, but Setsuna blocks it like it's nothing. Lionel figures it out. He must be using mana control to parry every attack. Drago, getting more irritated by the second, snaps that elites always look down on melee magic. He roars that his entire family was humiliated just because of their fighting style. In a burst of pure anger, Drago summons a sword, vowing to end this now. Setsuna answers by summoning his own blade, and here we go, the real fight begins. The two charge, their swords crashing in a shower of sparks. Drago follows up with a lightning-fast combo, but Setsuna is just too quick. He leaps and dodges every slash, then finally lands a clean hit of his own. But Drago recovers instantly, jumping back in for another attack. Setsuna evades, and the sheer force of their clash cracks the ground beneath them. As Drago charges again, Setsuna remembers two boys mocking him for this very fight. They criticized him for picking a battle with Drago and for choosing melee magic. He then tells Drago he understands his anger, but his own goal is something much bigger. Drago is just confused, having no idea what Setsuna is even talking about. With that, Setsuna shatters Drago's mana sword with one perfect strike. Drago is stunned for a second, but only a second, before he strikes back hard. Using physical boost acceleration, Setsuna cranks up his speed to another level. He counters with a devastating attack of his own. Illa realizes Setsuna's attacks are finally starting to wear Drago down. Lionel admits Drago's performance is incredible, but Setsuna's skill is just as insane. He can't wait to see which one of them is going to come out on top. Okay, let's be real. To break that defense, Setsuna needs to create a perfect opening. As he rushes in, Drago conjures a second sword, swinging wildly at him. Sensing the danger, Setsuna dodges back in the nick of time. Drago's attack smashes into the ground, completely shattering the arena floor. Seeing the destruction, Drago smirks, confident that Setsuna can't escape. Fueled by pure rage, he clenches his fists tight. Illa watches nervously, wondering what kind of move he's planning now. Drago lunges forward and throws a massive punch right at Setsuna. But it connects with nothing, just an afterimage left behind. The real Setsuna is already high in the air, looking down on him. He explains that by focusing mana, you can create a decoy to fool your opponent. Without wasting a breath, Setsuna moves at blinding speed. As Drago braces himself, Setsuna declares, "Let's finish this." He then unleashes a massive slash straight at Drago. The audience is in shock, and Lionel wonders if he used the attack's momentum itself. He announces that the match is over, Setsuna is the winner. And as Drago lies defeated, you and I just witnessed a masterclass in strategy. Outcome, but to everyone's shock, Drago slowly gets back to his feet. The entire audience gasps, amazed he can even stand after that devastating hit. It was proof of just how monstrously strong Drago really was, but he's furious. He's convinced Setsuna held back on the final attack just to avoid a fatal blow. Setsuna just offers a hand to help him up. Drago, still absolutely seething with anger, asks him what he's fighting for. Setsuna pauses for a second before answering. He fights so that he won't lose to anyone or anything ever. And he's going to keep getting stronger and stronger. Drago gets it now. So that's why he's so strong, he says, finally accepting his defeat. Setsuna replies that Drago was a truly worthy opponent. And he believes Drago would be a massive help in the coming war against the Death God. Lionel approaches, telling Setsuna he must have had insane resolve to face a beast like Drago at point-blank range. He then raises Setsuna's hand, declaring that based on the match, Setsuna is the new representative for the melee magic department. A few days later, Lionel leads Setsuna to a room. He tells him it's time to meet the representatives from the other departments. Lionel jokes that he's the last person who should be giving Setsuna any advice, but tells him to please, just don't cause any trouble. Setsuna assures him he won't, then steps into the room where 7 others wait. All right, get readies. Because a kid with glasses immediately pipes up, asking if the melee magic department is really participating again this year. He's talking loud. He even calls them shameless. Setsuna knows this guy. It's Noel from Enhancement Magic. Noel walks right up, puts his leg over Setsuna's, and starts pressing down. He taunts him, saying they're fated to be rivals in the very first match. And that for the last 100 years, no melee magic user has ever won. He tells Setsuna to just sit in the corner and go lift some weights instead. But you know Setsuna, completely unbothered, he just moves his leg to press right back. Commenting, seems like the Enhancement Magic department has a pretty unique way of greeting people. Is this how it's done here? Noel gets angry, but Setsuna calmly states he couldn't care less about the last 100 years. I'll be the champion this year, he says. Noel, clearly frustrated, just scoffs and tells him to keep dreaming. Just then, the headmaster walks into the room. He smiles, commenting that it's good to see them all fired up, but save that energy for the actual match. As all the representatives stand up to show their respect, Setsuna reflects that the headmaster showed up at this exact moment. Just as he did in his past life, pay close attention to that. The headmaster stands before them as a pink-haired girl greets him warmly. She promises to make the headmaster proud during the intramural contest. Setsuna recognizes her too. It's Carol from the Summoning Magic department. She's always cheerful, but she was an incredibly tough opponent in the contest during his past life. And even though he held back against her then, he knows better than to underestimate her this time around. The headmaster begins. He congratulates every single one of them for being chosen as representatives. He says he's overjoyed to see 8 of the most talented students gathered here. Then he drops the bombshell. The matchups for the contest have been decided. The matchups were drawn at random, set up as a one-on-one tournament. First up, it would be melee magic versus enhancement magic. The second match features the healing and raising magic specialists. Then in the third match, formation magic goes up against summon magic. And trust me, you're gonna want to see the final match. It's the irregular magic user versus the alchemy magic specialist. The headmaster explains this is their chance to see other specializations up close. They'll see different kinds of magic firsthand. The matches are in 10 days, giving everyone time to train and rest up. With that, all the students bowed, but as he did, Setsuna realized something. This was his chance to talk to the headmaster directly. As the headmaster turned to leave, Setsuna called out his name. The headmaster recognized him as the melee magic department's representative. Setsuna asks if he can make a simple request if he wins the contest. He wants to learn about the headmaster's personal magic. The headmaster is surprised. Setsuna is a melee student and he's a summoner. He didn't think his magic would be very useful to him at all. But Setsuna clarifies he wants to learn about his second specialization. And just like that, the headmaster's friendly expression completely vanishes. He got serious, demanding, "Where did you hear about that?" Setsuna's power was already suspiciously high for a student. But to beat the death god, he couldn't afford to back down now. He explains that if the melee department wins for the first time in a century, it would totally change how everyone sees them. This is where it gets interesting. So what he was asking for in return wasn't really that much. The headmaster decides Setsuna doesn't seem to have any bad intentions. So he agrees to test his abilities, but only if he wins. The headmaster warns him, though, that winning won't be easy at all. Setsuna just fires back with pure determination, saying he will win. He is ready to receive the headmaster's teachings. The headmaster leaves, impressed with Setsuna's fighting spirit. That evening, Setsuna is just sitting alone, eating something delicious. He realizes he hasn't had much to do in his 10 years at the academy. He decides he needs to thank Illa for recommending the meal. With 10 days left, he needs to prepare himself as best he can. Suddenly, a voice tells him there's no need to worry about that. A split second before a giant fist comes crashing right towards him. He blocks it with one hand and jumps back, only to see it's a golem. And of course, Noel was behind it, watching from the shadows. He notes that it wasn't a bad block, but he did use Setsuna's blind spot. Setsuna immediately figures out this is Noel's work. He asks Noel what exactly he thinks he's doing here. Noel says they should just finish what they started right now. Why wait for the official match to take down a melee mage? And you and I both know it's time for payback for that earlier humiliation. Watch this, Noel sneers that Setsuna brought this on himself, but just as he does, the bell rings. Noel decides to back off, saying it wouldn't look good for others to see him cornering a supposedly weak opponent. He dismisses the golems and leaves, threatening to utterly crush Setsuna in their upcoming official match. Setsuna admits that Noel is talented, controlling so many golems at once. However, his attention is immediately drawn to the bread that fell during the fight. A total tragedy, he won't be able to enjoy it now. The next day, over in the melee magic department, Lionel is addressing his students. He tells them that before the intramural contest, they're going to analyze the battle between Drago and Setsuna. He then asks both of them if they've figured out their own shortcomings. They both nod in agreement. Now pay close attention here. Lionel tells Drago to go first. Drago admits that his control over his mana and his emotions was completely unstable. When Lionel turns to Setsuna, our boy answers that his physical strength was lacking, and in terms of pure power, Drago had totally overpowered him. Lionel appreciates their honesty and reminds them that you can't grow without facing your own weaknesses. He encourages them to focus on those exact shortcomings during the next match. Illa raises her hand and asks if this match is basically a form of training for the big intramural contest. Lionel just smiles and replies that it's a very good question. He then reveals that Setsuna's first match is going to be against the Enhancement Magic Department. According to Setsuna, Noel's main ability is commanding large numbers of golems, and since golems have physical bodies, fighting them isn't so different from facing a melee mage. So Lionel gives instructions to both students. He tells Drago to focus on his speed, because in this fight, he's going to attack Setsuna from multiple directions to simulate a swarm of golems. As for Setsuna, his job is to block Drago's attacks and practice his counter-strikes. Drago gets ready and says it won't be like last time. Setsuna just replies that he's hoping for the same thing. And here we go. Drago rushes forward to throw a punch, but Setsuna dodges the attack. Drago thinks Setsuna expected an attack from the right, but before he can react, bam, Drago's other hand connects. Setsuna realizes he was just a bit too slow. Lionel praises Drago, noting that he struck a perfect balance between speed and power. He's also praised for his defense. And Lionel instructs him to use his footwork to counter Setsuna's movements. Setsuna agrees and steps back, preparing to punch Drago. After a while, they're both on the ground. Completely exhausted, Drago even thanks Setsuna for the match. Lionel approaches them and says their movements were good. He believes that in just a few days, they'll both be able to handle golems with absolutely no trouble. He hands them some water, and Setsuna, taking one, says he won't let his guard down. Lionel observes them, noting that Drago has a really solid foundation. Meanwhile, Setsuna has exceptional instincts, and both are improving incredibly fast. Finally, the day of the contest arrives, and let me tell you, the energy in this place is electric. The host announces the 781st intramural contest has begun. 8 students from the Academy's departments, but who will reign supreme? Setsuna and Noelle stood across from each other, ready for battle. The host then addresses the audience, telling everyone they can start placing their bets on the contestants, most of them. All right, let's jump in. Everyone's betting on Noelle, wondering who'd be crazy enough to back a melee mage. Then a kid who got wrecked by Setsuna before comes up to him. He tells him, "You better win this and show everyone who's really in charge here." Meanwhile, the crowd spots Octor from the ranged magic department walking in. He's with some guy, looking totally relaxed, even though he's got a match coming up. It's obvious the winner of this fight is going up against Octor next. The host announces the stage changes randomly for every match. And for this one, it's a desert. Noelle mocks Setsuna. Seems like luck isn't on your side, is it? A few kids in the crowd start cheering for Noelle, totally hyped. They're convinced some guy from the melee magic department is an easy win. Another one chimes in, saying how great it feels to fight the weakest department. Illa hears them and absolutely loses it, screaming at them to shut up. She promises they'll be eating their words once they see what melee magic can really do. Just as she's about to charge them, Lionel steps in to hold her back. And with that, the host finally yells for the match to begin. Noelle casually picks up a stone, asking Setsuna if he knows what it is. Setsuna guesses it might be a piece of fortified rock. Noelle just grins. "Close," he says, "combine it with sand and you get golems," and just like that, a golem made of solid rock appears, completely immune to any blade. Then Noelle reveals a whole pouch of the stones and scatters them across the sand. Now pay attention, because as several golems erupt, Noelle taunts, "Let's see how long you can last." Illa watches, completely stunned. She can't believe how many he just summoned. Noelle smugly explains that in a desert, his power is practically infinite. He can make as many golems as he wants, and Setsuna's melee magic won't even scratch him. One guy in the audience says the outcome of this match is already decided. The kid next to him just laughs, mocking Setsuna's chances. Noelle turns to Setsuna, asking if he has any last words before this is over. But Setsuna just replies, "This is disappointing. I thought you'd be better than this." Noelle is stunned silent for a second before ordering his golems to attack. The golems charge forward, kicking up a massive cloud of dust, and Noelle smirks. "That's the price for provoking me," he says, thinking it's all over. The crowd is completely blind, trying to figure out what's happening in the dust. They can't see a single thing on the arena floor because of the sandstorm. But down there, Setsuna focuses his mana and starts slicing through the golems one by one. "He mastered demolishing these things ages ago," he mutters to himself. I know what you're thinking. The audience is in absolute shock, and even Noelle can't believe his eyes. He panics, creating more golems and sending them charging right at Setsuna. But Setsuna is perfectly calm as he walks straight toward Noel. In close quarters combat, he says, no other school of magic can beat melee. He cuts through the golems again, and now Noel is officially freaking out. Noel yells that he can just make more, telling him not to be so ridiculous. But Setsuna keeps walking, closing the distance until he's right in front of Noel. Looks like luck wasn't on your side, he says, landing a punch that sends Noel flying. A kid in the audience shouts, "What just happened?" while the woman next to him is just as lost. The entire crowd just stares down at the aftermath, completely silent, trying to make sense of the match's progress and the outcome. And as the dust clears, you and I finally see the winner, Setsuna. Breathing hard, he thinks to himself that the first match was an easy win. Illa is absolutely ecstatic, cheering her heart out for him. A student nearby can't believe what he just heard. The melee mage actually won. Another one guesses Nal must have run out of mana, summoning all those golems. The crowd is buzzing, trying to figure out how Setsuna managed to pull it off. But Silas isn't impressed, saying Nal didn't lose because of a mistake. He claims it's because Setsuna was just flat out more skilled than him. The student beside him admits the fight was more interesting than he expected. Still, he thinks there should have been some better safeguards in place. The second battle kicks off, and it's an absolute slugfest. After his match, Setsuna joins Illa in the stands to watch. She congratulates him, then asks if he's staying for the next round. He says yes, explaining that it's good prep for his own upcoming battles. He knew this next fight was between the summon magic and formation magic users. The announcer calls it, Carol, the summon magic rep, has the clear advantage. Her opponent from formation magic is desperately trying to close the gap. Watching the fight, Setsuna takes mental notes on his opponent's moves. Even though the guy is losing, his techniques are seriously impressive. He thinks they might even be useful in a fight against other melee mages. Illa comments that while the magic looks flashy and cool, she's still committed to getting stronger with her own melee magic. Setsuna asks why she chose it, since she clearly has talent for other types. And here's where we learn her why. It started with a childhood memory. She explains that one day, she and her little brother were attacked by a bear. Just when she thought it was over, a melee mage swooped in and saved them. Seeing that mage so cool, so strong, she knew right then what she wanted. She wanted to be just like him, strong enough to protect people in trouble. A little embarrassed, she admits that it probably sounds childish. But Setsuna immediately shuts that down, telling her it's not childish at all. He says people can become infinitely stronger when they have a real goal. When Illa asks if he really thinks so, he just nods. Just then Leo shows up, the top student in the ranged magic department. Well, second only to Setsuna himself, in his own opinion. Leo congratulates Setsuna on the win, admitting his power is impressive. Then he asks who the girl is sitting next to him. Now watch this interaction. Leo pauses, then asks if he's interrupting something between them. Setsuna is completely lost, but Illa is quick to respond. She says it's not like that at all and quickly gets up to leave. As she walks off, she tells them they should sit together and watch. Setsuna is just left there, totally confused by her sudden reaction. Leo takes a seat, and Setsuna asks him why he isn't the magic representative. After all, Setsuna knows he's the best in the ranged department. And just like that, you can see Leo's entire mood shift, darkly. Looked a little down, explaining it wasn't an excuse, but Actor was just incredibly deceptive. Leo confessed that Actor had tricked him into stepping down from his position, taking on the role of department representative instead. He urged Setsuna to be careful, because you and I both know you can't let your guard down around a guy like that. Setsuna figured that Actor was the type to do anything to get what he wanted. So he knew he'd have to tread carefully. The scene then cuts over to Actor, who's looking at a box of flowers with a chilling smile on his face. During the tournament, the announcer declares the first match of the highly anticipated Second round is about to begin, featuring our main character against actor. On this stage, the moment a competitor goes down, not only do they lose the match, they also face a seriously punishing scoring system. Drago, sitting beside Lionel, remarks that it'll be tough for Setsuna to even get close to actor. Lionel agrees, adding that Drago would be at a huge disadvantage in this fight, too. Meanwhile, actor, sitting with Silas, admires the impressive stage he had set up for their battle. As expected from the head of the ranged magic department, Silas adds that he's going to make Setsuna regret his decision and realize just how foolish it was to pick melee magic. Actor simply says that regret would only be possible if Setsuna even makes it to the starting line. The host announces it's almost time for the match to begin. The scene then jumps back 10 minutes earlier, inside the contestant waiting room. Illa knocks on the door before coming in, asking Setsuna how he's feeling, obviously worried about him. He tells her he's fine. Business as usual, then asks her to look at the vase right in front of her. As she looks, he explains it's a magical artifact that activates on touch. The second she came into contact with it, it would have absorbed a massive amount of her mana. Shocked, she asks why something so dangerous was just left there. He tells her it was meant to cripple him before the match. Don't blink, because this marks the 7th assassination attempt on him. She asks if he got hurt by it, but he just tells her not to worry, because he'd already taken care of everything. He knew it was actor's handiwork, who was so meticulous he left no evidence that could possibly trace back to him. Suddenly, a knock at the door. 3 children walk in holding a bouquet, asking Illa to give it to Setsuna. Illa wonders what on earth these kids are doing here. A boy explains that a man had sent them to deliver the flowers to him, but when they look around, the man is nowhere to be found. Illa thinks it would have been better if Setsuna had just accepted the bouquet himself. The boy mentions that the person who sent them was actually pretty insistent about it. As one of the kids holding the bouquet starts to feel dizzy and drops it, Setsuna spots marks on her neck that remind him of something horrifying he'd seen during the war. Now watch this. He immediately kicks the bouquet away from them. Alarmed, Illa asks him what's wrong. Setsuna explains that those flowers are from a poisonous plant known as venium. The children's condition is deteriorating fast, and Setsuna is absolutely seething with rage. He mutters to himself, furious at how far some people would go to manipulate others. And let's be real, you and I can see why. If these kids aren't treated immediately, they're not going to make it. But he also knows that only a healing mage could properly identify and counteract this specific kind of poison. Illa, equally worried, agrees. All right, stick with me because their lives are on the line. Setsuna warns her to stay back. He tells her not to get too close to the kids, or she'll get exposed to the poison. But Illa insists she'll be fine, pulling out a brooch and telling him to trust her. Setsuna recognizes it immediately, a magical artifact that can store mana. Illa explains her mother packed it with powerful healing spells inside. For exactly this kind of emergency, she immediately starts to heal the children. And Setsuna sees it working. The marks on their skin are slowly fading away. Illa mentions her mom gave her the brooch for emergencies, but still. She never imagined she'd use it in a situation this dire. Setsuna nods, grateful. With her help, he uses his own power to move the poison bouquet, vowing to handle it. He knows this venium plant is most toxic when it blooms, and he has to act fast. But he can't just get rid of it here, not with the situation this bad. If he tried it in front of the huge crowd, the poison would spread everywhere, endangering them all. Plus, the poison's already affecting him, so he launches the bouquet straight towards the world tree, hoping it'll get vaporized. With one final surge, he strikes, slicing the toxic plant and launching it high into the sky, far away from the arena. As it burns up, he feels the poison start to fade. His strength is returning. Meanwhile, back in the arena, the crowd is buzzing. They're gossiping about Setsuna's absence. Some even think he got scared and ran. The host checks the clock, and is just about to disqualify Setsuna for being late. And right as he's about to announce actor as the winner, Setsuna appears, interrupting him. He declares that this match is far from over. Actor just gives him a creepy smile. He seems pleased as punch that Setsuna got his little gift. A present, he says, to congratulate him on winning round 1. How thoughtful. But Setsuna's not having it, calling him out for using such despicable tactics. Not only did he send the poison, but he had the nerve to use innocent children. Actor just plays dumb, acting like he has no idea what he's talking about. Enraged, Setsuna can barely contain himself, his fists clenched tight. But actor keeps digging, saying there's no need to get so worked up over nothing. In fact, he claims the children should be proud they played a small part. Now here's where it gets really twisted in his victory. This guy is pure scum. The host finally calls for the match to begin. Actor immediately attacks with Star. Mutilated magic, but Setsuna dodges it clean. Drago, watching from the sidelines, wonders if something happened to Setsuna on the way to the arena because his mana feels completely out of whack. And Setsuna knows why. The world tree purified most of the poison, but the last traces of it remain. That residual poison is stopping his body from working at 100%. A whole series of attacks comes flying at him, but Setsuna jumps and dodges them all. Actor is just getting warmed up though, and starts mocking him, claiming the melee magic rep. Only knows how to defend himself. From his seat, Silas is watching. He whispers to himself, glad that he's already arranged everything in Actor's favor, so what you and I are about to see is a completely rigged match. Setsuna glances around, noticing Layla isn't here yet, and worries if the kids are safe. Actor taunts him, saying he can't even focus on the fight in front of him. He suggests that Setsuna already looks like he's getting tired, a boy in the crowd. And of course, the crowd is already saying the only thing melee magic can do is run. Another guy wonders what hope Setsuna even has against ranged magic. Actor attacks again, boasting that he's about to end this. Setsuna, determined, prepares to block the next attack with his mana guard. He braces himself, but just as he tries to activate it, his defense shatters. The hit lands hard, leaving him severely injured. Actor just laughs at the pitiful sight. But Setsuna struggles to his feet, a dangerous glint in his eyes. He asks Actor why he stopped, since when did ranged magic go soft? Why wasn't Actor pushing him to the absolute limit and finishing him off? Instead, he was just standing there, flapping his gums. Even while injured, Setsuna is trying to figure out what Actor is really up to. Actor just smirks, and you and I can see he's realized Setsuna is analyzing his every move. He actually finds this whole situation interesting. He tells Setsuna to look around, and when he does, he sees the trap. He's on a tiny piece of land, completely surrounded by flowing lava. A boy in the crowd screams out that Setsuna is totally trapped. Actor declares that he pursues perfection, and Setsuna acted exactly as he planned. He prepares his storm cannon, saying that now it is all over. But just then, Layla's voice cuts through the arena, calling out to Setsuna. She tells him the children are finally safe. He smiles, relieved. Now he can fight with everything he's got, and trust me, the real fight is just beginning. Suddenly, Actor feels a massive surge of mana from Setsuna and is totally confused. How in the world did he gather that much power? Setsuna explains he was using physical boosts to activate his cells and detoxify his blood. All while Actor was foolishly toying around, digging his own grave. Enraged, Actor retorts that Setsuna is nothing but a broken mess. From the sidelines, Silas urges Actor to finish him, screaming that it has to be a bluff. Actor unleashes his attack, but Setsuna knows his mana is almost gone. He's down to just one final strike. He summons every last bit of strength. And with his sword, he deflects Actor's entire blast. The sudden counterattack leaves both Drago and Actor in absolute shock. Setsuna's redirected attack is now hurtling straight for Actor. He nullifies his own magic, taunting Setsuna for thinking he'd just take the hit. Actor claims the only one getting buried today is Setsuna. But when Actor looks up, you can just feel his blood run cold. Setsuna is already there. Standing right in front of him, sword in hand, Setsuna just smirks. He tells Actor that he was the one who underestimated him. Terrified, Actor begs for mercy. But all he gets is a brutal slash from the sword, sending him crashing to the ground. Setsuna coldly states that the children are the ones who deserve an apology. Not him, and with that, the host announces Setsuna as the winner. But just as the crowd begins to cheer, the floor beneath them starts to shift. The platform suddenly slides away, crumbling into the lava below. Both Setsuna and Actor are about to fall, and the crowd gasps in horror. As they're falling, Setsuna realizes Actor is already unconscious. At this rate, he'll be in mortal danger, so Setsuna uses his powers to regain his balance. And barely manages to catch Actor before he falls any further, but you and I have to ask, is he too late? Just then Carol appears, calling on her summoned beast, Fenrir, to save them. Setsuna immediately recognizes her summoning magic. The crowd goes wild as Fenrir swoops in, rescuing them both in a flash. Carol praises her companion, then turns to Setsuna with a smile, hoping he didn't mind her interference. Setsuna genuinely thanks her, thinking to himself that Carol was a real contender. No doubt about it, she was a top favorite to win this whole tournament. A truly formidable opponent, he knew he had to prepare for their inevitable battle. Meanwhile, the audience is still reeling from Setsuna's shocking victory. One kid insists it couldn't have been just sheer luck, while a girl admits that the result was totally unpredictable. Even the headmaster had been watching the match with keen interest. Sila's absolutely furious with Actor, calls him a useless fool. He swears that Setsuna will live to regret this day, as our hero rejoins Illa, Drago, and Lionel. Illa immediately expresses her gratitude for what he's done. Drago, having heard the whole story, gives Setsuna a compliment of his own. Setsuna asks about the kids, and Illa reassures him they're safe in the infirmary and will be fine. He lets out a sigh of relief, hearing that the children were safe and sound. He'd been worried sick about them, but just then he feels a strange, chilling sensation. He whips around to check. Illa asks what's wrong, but he just says it was nothing. He only sensed it for a moment, but that intense killing intent was undeniable. He can't help but wonder what in the world is going on at this academy. Later that evening, Setsuna stands alone in the forest, thinking things over. There was only 1 week left until the final match. He also remembered that eerie magic he'd felt. He knew one thing for sure, he had to get even stronger. Right on cue, Lionel appears, curious why Setsuna wanted to meet in such a secluded spot. Setsuna cuts right to the chase. There's a spell he's desperate to learn from him. Lionel's legendary technique, the Jaeger-Lionel Comet Fist. Lionel just chuckles. He says that's what people used to call him, and asks where Setsuna even heard that name. Setsuna clenches his fists. Okay, I know what you're thinking, and you're absolutely right. This was the legendary title he remembered from his time in the Mage army, before he came back to the past. The Comet Fist, the name of a melee mage who took down a dragon, single-handedly. In a single, devastating blow, but by the time he joined the army, that mage was long gone. It was just a hunch, a wild guess, but Setsuna was now completely sure. The department head standing right in front of him was, in fact, the legendary Lionel. With pure determination in his eyes, Setsuna bows deeply, ready to become his student. Lionel explains that the Comet Fist is an ancient, difficult technique. Setsuna doesn't care. He tells him that Lionel is the strongest melee mage he has ever seen. Lionel still doesn't get it. Why is Setsuna so desperate to become stronger? As far as he could see, the kid was already incredibly capable, but Setsuna says it's not enough. He refuses to lose to anyone ever again, not even to an opponent who seems completely invincible. Hearing this, Lionel laughs, calling Setsuna one interesting kid. He agrees to teach him. But he gives him a serious warning. This technique is not something a student should be learning. Lionel starts gathering mana in his hand, and Setsuna can feel an unbelievable amount of power. The energy being concentrated is absolutely immense. Lionel explains that the technique is called Comet Fist. And trust me, you're going to want to see what happens when he uses this move for the first time in years. This move costs double the mana of his others, but one solid punch is all it takes, and trust me, you're going to want to watch this too. With a single blow to the ground, Lionel unleashes a pressure wave that rips the area apart. Debris goes flying everywhere. Setsuna can only stare, totally stunned. He admits it's way beyond anything he could have imagined. Lionel explains that the technique requires focusing an insane amount of mana into a single point. This makes it tough to use in one-on-one battles like a tournament. He asks Setsuna if he still really wants to learn it. Setsuna's reply is immediate. He's looking forward to it. Lionel agrees to teach him and tells the kid to follow his lead. The scene then flips over to Carol, who's having tea with some mysterious guy. He congratulates her for making it all the way to the final round. Then he asks if she's confident about beating the representative from melee magic. Carol just smiles, not taking him too seriously, and says that nobody knows how it'll turn out, but she's definitely planning to do her best. As the man finishes his tea, Carol offers to get him another cup, but as she gets up to leave, now watch closely, the man discreetly pulls out a strange card. He uses it on her. An emblem glows on the back of her neck, and she collapses. The man just smirks, thinking it would be great if Carol could just defeat Setsuna. But if things don't go according to plan, well, he'll just deal with them both. Back with Setsuna, he's still training, wondering if he's actually ready. Lionel is in shock. Turns out Setsuna perfected the new technique in just 1 week. He thought it would take years. Lionel tells Setsuna that he's officially passed, marking the end of his special lessons. The training for Charge Bullet is complete. Now, we've finally arrived at the day of the final match. The entire audience has gathered in the arena, buzzing with excitement. The host announces the final match of the Mage Academy's 781st contest. The first fighter is Carol, fresh off her winning streak from the Summoning Magic Department. Her opponent is the one who completely shook up the entire contest this year. Setsuna from the Melee Magic Department. The students are going wild. They're not sure who will win, but one boy is confident Carol's got this in the bag. After all, she's dominated every single match so far, but a girl quickly chimes in. She says Setsuna is crazy strong too, and after his last match, she's rooting for him all the way. Even 3 little kids are in the crowd, cheering their hearts out for Setsuna. The fight is set to take place in the goddess's ruins and anticipating a fierce battle. A formation mage has already erected a powerful barrier around the stage. Illa watches with Lionel and notes that it looks like a fair fight. Lionel is wondering about the match too, as Setsuna glances toward the headmaster. He's thinking about that promise to teach him a second magic specialization. Carol observes Setsuna, thinking that he looks like he's prepared for anything. She plans to summon Fenrir and challenge him to bring everything he's got. The announcer's voice booms out. The long-awaited final match officially begins. Carol immediately summons Fenrir and leaps onto its back, ready to attack. Setsuna barely dodges, recognizing Fenrir's attack as a powerful glacial bomb. One packed with deadly snow flurries, Carol smirks, saying that even though he's fast, he won't be able to keep dodging forever. He's going to regret it. Fenrir attacks again, and Setsuna activates his physical amplifier, kicking his speed up a notch. 10 times faster, and just like that, you and I watch him dodge the attacks, getting dangerously close as he prepares to land a slash on Fenrir. Illa is thrilled that it worked. Lionel not so much. He knows Fenrir's are just clumps of mana, meaning Fenrir will just heal from any injury. Carol tells Setsuna his little efforts weren't bad, but now she's using Fenrir's power to freeze the entire ground. Setsuna is floored as the entire stage starts icing over. He realizes the chill from the mana won't be able to get through the barrier. A man watching from the side simply stands on the frozen field, thinking that Fenrir's attacks are about to get a whole lot stronger. He wonders what Setsuna will do next, as his eyes flare with fiery determination. Okay, so pay attention. Setsuna knows normal attacks are completely useless. The longer he drags this battle out, the bigger his disadvantage becomes. He decides to use the ruined debris on the ground to leap and dodge, betting everything on his charged bullets as he forms a mana sword and braces himself. Fenrir's attack shatters the stone he was just standing on. A kid in the crowd points out that Setsuna isn't even attacking anymore, he's just defending. Another kid scoffs that Setsuna is no match for a summoning mage. And the three kids watching seem pretty worried for him too. As Lionel watches the fight unfold, Illa asks him what's wrong. He says it's nothing, but that charged bullet can only be used once you've gathered enough mana, making it a really difficult technique for a one-on-one fight. But with Setsuna's incredible control, he's focusing all of it right into his fist. Not an easy move. Carol, meanwhile, has no idea what Setsuna is planning, but she knows she can't just stand there and wait, so she summons Garuda, a giant bird familiar. To fight right alongside Fenrir, I know what you're thinking, Drago is shocked too. Two familiars at once, Laganal admits it's an incredible talent. Both beasts lunge at Setsuna at the exact same time, and Illa looks on, concerned. But Setsuna parries them both, one with each hand, forcing them back. He calmly tells Carol that he knew she'd play her trump card. She's completely stunned that he blocked her attack, wondering how he even did it. But as Setsuna prepares to counter, he spots a strange man watching from the side. The man suddenly snaps his fingers, and Carol winces in pain, a dark aura exploding around her. Setsuna looks on, alarmed. Is this the death god's magic? He's certain it is. This is the magic of the death god, but he can't wrap his head around how it's even possible. Carol starts rambling, then suddenly screams, unleashing a dark power that summons several shadow monsters. They all rush to attack Setsuna. The audience is stunned, wondering how many familiars Carol actually has. Laganal realizes this isn't Carol's magic. He screams for the match to be stopped and for the barrier to be dissolved, demanding to know what the formation mage is doing. The man behind the dark magic explains that only the person who cast the barrier can remove it. Everyone's looking for the formation mage, but he's already been captured by the villain. As the monsters swarm Setsuna, he knows in his gut who's responsible for all of this. Setsuna immediately activates his mana detection, trying to pinpoint the source. But the man just tells him to focus on the fight. You and I both know this isn't good. He orders Garuda to attack, slamming Setsuna with a pole and forcing him back. Illa watches, absolutely terrified, as Setsuna struggles back to his feet. The man mocks him, saying there's no way he can be found in this crowd. And in his current state, Setsuna is basically helpless. Laganal feels the pressure. He knows time is running out. Setsuna can't prepare another charged bullet. And Carol's physical condition is getting worse by the second. If they don't do something, her magic will go wild, and her life will be on the line. He realizes the truth. Someone is puppeteering her from the shadows. Carol keeps fighting it, screaming for Setsuna to run as the dark monsters swarm him. He dodges her attacks, weaving his way closer while fending off the creatures. One horned beast lunges, but he's ready for it. He grabs its horns and just yeets the monster into the others. As the headmaster watches this chaos unfold, Laganal bolts up the stairs. At this rate, Setsuna is in serious trouble. He has to find the mage who cast this barrier, hoping Setsuna can just hang on. But another monster with a single, sharp horn charges, stabbing Setsuna in the leg. Illa gasps watching the wound, and the other students start to panic. They all know he's pushing himself way past his limits. The man behind it all declares that it's over, ordering his monsters to finish him. They charge and Femur sinks its teeth deep into Setsuna's hand. The pain is absolutely blinding, and trust me, his scream is just gut-wrenching. And then Setsuna remembers Lionel's lesson, asking what's most important in melee magic. Drago's answer was simple, the power to take down an enemy in a single blow. But Setsuna had a different take, explaining it was about closing the distance. It was all about getting right up in your enemy's face while taking minimal damage. Lionel added the key to never let any attack break your focus. You had to stay strong enough to deliver that one final, decisive blow. He told them their training to defend against damage would begin now. Setsuna snaps back to the present. The defense, it worked. The man watching the fight thinks Setsuna's arm is completely destroyed. He wonders if he did it on purpose, a sacrifice to concentrate his mana. Setsuna knows these familiars are whipped into a frenzy. Any weakness now is fatal. They see him as prey. He yells, his voice full of power. I'll finish this with one punch. Then he unleashes a massive charged bullet attack. Every single familiar gets wiped out in an instant. After the smoke clears, Carol is about to collapse, but Setsuna rushes to her side. He catches her, checks that she's okay, and gently lowers her to the ground. The audience is stunned into silence. Did Carol really just collapse like that? Finally, the host makes the official call. Setsuna is the winner. This marks the first time in 100 years a melee magic head has won it all. The students absolutely erupt, cheering like crazy, with one pointing out that last move. It was a technique none of them had ever seen before. And you can bet Layla and Dra are completely losing their minds with joy over his win. The guy who lost admits he saw it coming and had even bet on Setsuna. His buddy asks how much he pocketed, but the man just scoffs. Turns out he never expected Setsuna to actually win. He just couldn't stand by and do nothing. But first things first, he needs to deal with that formation mage. He then notices something odd, wondering if someone is praising the mage. With a flick of his wrist, he casts a spell, marking the guy's back with a glowing symbol. At the same time, Ilo is heading over, sensing a strange magical presence in the area. When he finally arrives, he finds the formation mage passed out on the ground. Ilo wonders if he just missed something big. At last, the barrier begins to fade away, and the headmaster descends into the arena. He remarks that after summoning that many familiars, it's really no surprise that Carol collapsed. But Setsuna is convinced someone was secretly pulling her strings. A quick check confirms his suspicion, and trust me, this is where it gets serious. It was the work of a cursed magical artifact. He tells everyone to leave it all to him. As the headmaster starts healing Carol, he turns and praises Setsuna for proving his immense strength. He promises that a deal is a deal. Setsuna gives him a grateful nod. The headmaster then leaves, telling Setsuna to meet him in his office the very next day. So Setsuna makes his way to the infirmary, where a healer gets to work on his wounds. As the injuries fade, she tells him they aren't 100% healed, so he better take it easy for a while. He thanks her and changes into a fresh set of clothes. Just then, someone knocks on his door. When Setsuna invites them in, it's Lionel, along with Drago, Illa, and the 3 little kids. Illa immediately rushes over, asking how Setsuna is doing. He assures her he's totally fine and proves it by moving his hand, showing he's fully recovered. Illa beams with pure happiness and congratulates him again for his incredible victory. Drago, smiling proudly, congratulates Setsuna as well, telling him he's the pride and joy of the melee magic department. The 3 kids, still buzzing with excitement, tell Setsuna that watching him fight was the coolest thing they've ever seen. After the congratulations are over, the others begin to leave, with only Lionel staying behind with Setsuna. Lionel informs him that the formation mage is okay now and has already regained consciousness. He continues, explaining that Carol isn't doing so well, but at least for now, she's out of immediate danger. Once she's fully recovered, they can finally get some answers about what really happened. But let's be real, you and I both know the important thing here. Someone tried to kill Setsuna during the match. Lionel asks if he has any idea who could be responsible. The scene cuts to that very night. A shadowy figure approaches a room, attempting to quietly open the door. But he quickly realizes a barrier has been placed to stop any intruders from getting inside. Despite that, it's completely useless against him. He shatters it with a touch and steps inside. The room he entered is where Carol lies unconscious and vulnerable. The man mutters that it'd be best to get rid of her before going after Setsuna. His rule is simple, and it's one we have seen 1,000 times: no loose ends. He unleashes an attack straight for Carol, but a blade slices right through it, cutting it in midair. Setsuna stands protectively in front of Carol, his eyes like ice. With pure determination, he said he knew the culprit would come after her, but he was desperately hoping it wouldn't be Leo. Leo just smirks, saying Setsuna finally caught on. You know how it is, our hero had zero proof, pointing to his friend. Setsuna admits it was just a hunch, a gut feeling that wasn't confirmed until right now. He says since the cards are on the table, they might as well take this outside. As they head out, Setsuna knows he's in deep, deep trouble. He still isn't fully healed. A fight in his current condition would be a disaster. Leo tells him to stop frowning, then asks when Setsuna first started to suspect him. Setsuna explains it was after the ritual of choice. Leo had just vanished into thin air. That alone was weird enough, but then another detail didn't add up. It made absolutely no sense that Leo wasn't picked as the ranged magic representative. And no matter what tricks Akshara might have pulled, Setsuna knew the truth deep down. He wouldn't have been fooled that easily. Leo just scoffs, guessing he should have been chosen. But Setsuna continues, explaining that when he saw Leo that one night, his suspicions solidified. Just like what he felt during the finals, it was an undeniable presence. He could sense the power of the death god coming from deep within him. The power of the death god. Now watch Leo's transformation right here. A twisted aura explodes around him as red lines crawl across his face. He leans in, demanding to know everything Setsuna knows about the death god. Setsuna feels it instantly. Leo's entire presence has changed. This isn't the friend he knew. He's a henchman of the death god, and if that's the case, he has to be stopped. No matter the cost, Leo asks if they can finally end this pathetic friendship farce. He sneers that he just wants to have some fun, at Setsuna's expense, of course. With a mana sword in hand, Setsuna charges forward to attack his former friend. But Leo effortlessly shatters his sword in half. It's a horrifying repeat of the past. Setsuna has seen this before. Leo boasts that he has earned the death god's trust. As a reward, he was granted the power of disintegration, just one of many gifts. I know what you're thinking, and yeah, nothing Setsuna does can even touch him. Setsuna attacks again, but Leo casually swats his magic aside. He can't give up. But he can't win. Leo only seems to use disintegration when Setsuna attacks directly. Then he moves with such incredible speed that it catches Setsuna completely off guard. He tries to strike Leo from behind, but once again, his attack is useless. Blocked, Leo smirks, saying his perception is on a whole other level. Far sharper than Setsuna's, defiant, Setsuna summons a powerful fireball. He grits his teeth, saying this would be a lot more fun if he weren't injured. Despite the searing pain, he forces himself to stand firm. Leo is actually impressed. He admits that lasting this long with only Millie's help is pretty tricky. He muses that Setsuna would have been so much stronger if he'd been chosen instead. Then his whole demeanor shifts, asking what he could do, as if it wasn't his choice. Let's finish it now. An electric spike shoots from Leo's hand, aiming for the kill. It pierces Setsuna's leg. The pain is blinding, and in that moment, he realizes the truth. The wound from that final match, it never actually healed. He winces, dropping to a knee. He looks up at Leo and asks him one simple question. Why? Leo's answer is chilling. There's no particular reason. He's simply tired of this entire world. It's like kicking over a sandcastle, and you and I are left wondering what broke this kid. All this just reminded him of the past, and he screamed that Leo was killing people for nothing. He couldn't even tell if this was the real Leo anymore. Leo just snarled back, telling him to shut up. As he powered up again, Setsuna knew. He knew his mana blade wasn't going to be enough. He needed something big. Something powerful enough to overwhelm Leo in one shot. He thought back to his fight with Discord. He had to remind himself he couldn't give up just yet. Setsuna prepared to make his move. But Leo just smirked and said, "It's already too late." Then he unleashed his own attack. Setsuna felt it, the terrifying speed of the death god's power. It was moving too fast. But just then, watch this, a bolt of lightning intercepts the attack. Leo just barely blocks another strike. Setsuna looks up at the roof of the building. And there he is, the headmaster, standing with his legendary dragon familiar. The headmaster asks if he's late, but Setsuna just says he arrived right on time. The headmaster starts putting the pieces together, everything that happened during the contest. It was all Leo's doing. He admits he's been keeping an eye on him. Ever since he first detected that impure mana, Leo doesn't seem surprised. He figured the headmaster of the school would be sharp, but the old man had hoped that the real culprit wouldn't be one of his own students, full of frustration. The headmaster roars at Leo to just give up, and his dragon echoes the command. A deafening roar, and it attacks with its blaze skill. Setsuna felt the raw power. The incredible force behind that attack, but Leo was completely unharmed. He just scoffed. He recognized the white dragon, the most powerful beast you could possibly summon. If it weren't for the demon god's power, Leo admitted he would have been in real danger. The headmaster knew what it was, magic disintegration. Let that sink in for a second. He couldn't believe such magic actually existed. Setsuna asked if he knew about it. And the headmaster explains, according to ancient records from the Silverlock family, passed down through generations of his ancestors. When a mysterious dark power awakens, the entire world is plunged into catastrophe. And magic disintegration is a core part of that evil. Leo just taunts them. He claims no magic in the world can touch him now. He calls out the headmaster, Nagem. Then he combines 3 attributes to launch his next devastating attack. Setsuna saw it immediately, triple attribute combo magic. Leo rises into the air. He gathers power and unleashes a devastating spray of energy. The headmaster's eyes widened. He yells at Setsuna to take 2 steps to the right, immediately. Setsuna follows his command and narrowly dodges the insane attack. The headmaster too. He was dodging every blast, which made Leo wonder what kind of magic he was even using. "Are you really that shocked?" the headmaster says, adding that he's the only one who knows how to neutralize this kind of magic, but Leo just sneers. He finds it amusing and promises his next attack will have even more power. He dares the headmaster to dodge that one. Setsuna knew this had to be it. The true power of the death god. Leo threatens to wipe every single one of them out. The headmaster can sense it too. This isn't just some ordinary power boost. At the rate Leo was attacking, everyone was about to get caught in the crossfire. He calls out to Setsuna, who immediately agrees with the new plan. The headmaster summons the holy butterfly, spreading its wings as they soar into the sky. They ride the dragon upwards, as Leo just watches from below with a smirk, and you and I both know the real fight is just getting started. The headmaster's desperate attempt to protect everyone. He points straight at the white dragon and taunts, "Bring it on." Both sides unleash their attacks. Leo's power is immense, colliding with the dragon and creating a massive explosion. He then asks the headmaster if he's finally ready to admit his defeat. The headmaster simply says that maybe it's time for an old man like him to step aside. But from the smoke, Setsuna charges at Leo. Leo scoffs, calling it a pathetic move to hide behind the dragon just to prepare an attack. He taunts him, saying all his effort is about to be useless as he conjures a barrier around himself. But Setsuna just glares. He promises to make Leo regret every ounce of arrogance he's shown them. Choosing melee magic was no mistake, and he was about to prove it with a single, decisive strike. Leo warns him not to underestimate a demon god's power. Now watch this. As Setsuna strikes, he shatters right through Leo's barrier. It's a direct hit. Setsuna poured everything into pure speed, moving faster than Leo's magic could disintegrate, causing a huge explosion. The headmaster knew. Even a power like magic disintegration has a speed limit it can't counter. He's impressed by Setsuna's raw determination. Leo is sent falling, badly wounded. Setsuna finally gets it. By using close-quarters magic, he outpaced the magic disintegration itself and actually defeated Leo. His choice was the right one. He turns to the headmaster, thinking they're finally out of the woods for now. The headmaster praises him for his victory and tells him to get his wounds treated. But just as he says that, Leo gets right back up. You and I thought that was the end, right? Setsuna is in total shock. His all-out attack wasn't nearly enough. Leo, injured but still standing tall, prepares his counterattack. Leo channels his power, waits for the perfect moment, and unleashes it on Setsuna. Setsuna desperately tries to block it with his sword, but the weapon shatters instantly. The attack sends him flying, crashing hard into a wall. Wounded, he collapses. As his consciousness fades, Setsuna hears Leo's voice, impressed that he's still standing. A truly powerful opponent. In his daze, Setsuna wonders. Did Leo somehow combine ranged magic with magic disintegration? No, that should be impossible, and then a memory floats to the surface. He remembers training, shooting at targets. For Leo, it was always a piece of cake. Setsuna had told him he was so naturally skilled, and if he didn't keep practicing, Leo would surpass him in no time. But Leo just laughed. He said it felt pretty good getting a compliment from a prodigy like him. Back in the present, Leo wonders aloud if he should fire another shot. But this time it would be aimed right at Setsuna. He tells him to look behind. Setsuna turns and sees a nightmare. Everyone else is injured, being slaughtered by monsters. Leo's voice cuts through the chaos, saying Setsuna doesn't deserve to be a hero. He's a failure who couldn't save them all. He abandoned them. With those words echoing in his head, Setsuna wakes up. He's in a bed, heavily injured. Illa is right beside him, relieved, telling him how glad she is that he's finally awake. He asks where he is, and she explains he was brought to the infirmary. She had been worried sick. He'd been unconscious for 3 whole days, and that's where we see him, filled with regret. Crushed by helplessness, knowing he'd been useless when it mattered the most. And you can just feel the frustration, right? Powerless against the demon god, just like before. He snaps back to reality and asks about the headmaster as Illa explains the situation. The headmaster should be in his office, probably in a meeting with all the department heads. As Setsuna forces himself out of bed, Illa immediately asks where he's going. He quickly gets dressed, telling her he has to see the headmaster right away. There's something important he needs to ask, but Illa protests. He isn't fully healed. He puts a hand on her shoulder, apologizing for making her worry about him. But this just can't wait. He has to see him now, and with that, he leaves. He walks out of the infirmary just as the headmaster finishes up his meeting. The other department heads were there, and the headmaster thanks them for their help. As they head out, someone comments that things are about to get real busy. Then Silas mutters that this whole mess is that one kid's fault. Okay, you can just feel the tension in this room, can't you? Just then, Setsuna opens the door and calls out to the headmaster, who smiles. He's glad to see Setsuna back on his feet. Silas, however, does not look happy. Lionel pats Setsuna on the shoulder, trying to offer some words of comfort. He tells him he's been through a lot and that everyone was worried sick about him. They can catch up later. Once they leave, Setsuna is finally alone with the headmaster. He stands there, regretting that everything that happened was because of him. He raises a hand, asking the headmaster to tell him everything that went down. He winces in pain from the sudden movement, and the headmaster tells him to take it easy. He reminds Setsuna not to be so hard on himself. His injuries are still healing. Then he starts explaining exactly what happened after Setsuna lost consciousness. Leo apparently wanted to finish the fight, but he'd run into a little problem. He had burned through way too much of his mana and decided to call it a day. Besides, he figured it would be more fun to face them again in the future. Leo then created a portal and vanished, leaving a farewell message for the headmaster. He said they would meet again if the opportunity ever presented itself. The headmaster thinks to himself that it was a golden opportunity, for sure. But whatever lay beyond that portal was far too dangerous to face at that moment. Next time they'll need to fight with everything they've got. Setsuna sits down, lost in thought. He brings up the mysterious entity and that boundary between dimensions they both saw. The headmaster asks Setsuna if he has any idea who or what that might have been. And he follows up with another question: just how much does Setsuna actually know? And here it is, the question we've all been waiting for. He knew about the headmaster's secret magic, so it was time to explain everything. Setsuna hesitates, wondering if this is the right time to tell him the truth. How could he possibly convince him that he was actually from the future? As the headmaster presses him for an answer, a brilliant idea strikes Setsuna. He asks the headmaster to take a much closer look at the Amulet of Resurgence. Surprised, the headmaster examines it closely, and his eyes widen in disbelief. It's the blessing of the spirit of time, something that had long since disappeared. And if it had already been used in a different time travel was a real possibility. Setsuna confirms it. The headmaster has already figured out the unbelievable truth. And trust me, this is it. He traveled back 10 years from the future using that very amulet. All right, let's start with the moment our hero lays it all on the line. The death god and his followers will destroy the world and kill the headmaster. The headmaster admits it sounds insane, but the amulet is undeniable proof. And he realized the power that sent Setsuna back in time must have been fueled by a future so horrific that it threw him an entire decade into the past. Placing a hand on his shoulder, the headmaster understands the weight of his burden. He tells him he's carried this weight long enough. Now, he will help in any way he can. For the first time, Setsuna feels a surge of hope. He's not alone in this fight. With the headmaster on his side, maybe they actually have a fighting chance. Maybe the world won't be destroyed after all. The headmaster has a plan. He's going to teach Setsuna a second type of magic, and you're gonna wanna see this. This power isn't part of the original branches, it's elemental magic. To train properly, the headmaster says they need to relocate for a while. And so, they make their way to the legendary World Tree. The headmaster mentions it's been a long time since he last visited. Turns out he used to come here to train when he was young, which surprises Setsuna. At the World Tree, the headmaster begins the special lesson. In simple terms, the caster uses their mana to become one with elemental spirits. This lets them cultivate an incredible new power deep inside their body. Because it's so unique, elemental magic has a totally different starting point. Unlike standard magic, it can actually be combined with other forms, making it one of the most versatile and useful powers out there. Setsuna can hardly believe it's possible, so the headmaster decides to demonstrate. As he prepares to unleash his elemental magic, his eyes begin to glow with a brilliant light. Setsuna recognizes that glow. It's the same power he used when he battled Leo. Then the headmaster suggests a game of rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Setsuna is completely lost, but the headmaster reminds him he's still injured. A full-on duel is out of the question for now, so a game will have to do. They begin playing, and the headmaster wins every single round. He just tells Setsuna to try again, and again they play. And every single time Setsuna loses. Finally, the lesson is revealed. The elemental spirit of time grants the headmaster foresight, allowing him to see several seconds into the future, but that's just one example. There are countless elemental spirits, and the one you contract with determines the unique abilities you'll gain, for instance, a contract. With the spirit of wind would grant you the power of flight. With the spirit of water, you could dodge attacks with ease. Setsuna's mind is racing. Mastering this could power up his melee magic in a million ways. But the headmaster brings him back to reality. He can't practice this magic. Not until he successfully forges a contract with an elemental spirit himself. And to do that, there's a crucial first step he has to take. He asks what that first step is, and you and I are about to find out right now. The headmaster tells him to clear his mind, to become one with the world around him. All right, let's jump in. The headmaster tells him to connect with nature, to feel the spirits that are everywhere. Setsuna concentrates, trying his best to become one with the natural world. He focuses hard on the spirits, hoping they'll lend him the power to fight the death god, but nothing happens. He feels absolutely nothing. Frustrated, he thinks to himself that he can't sense a single spirit. The headmaster sees the look on his face, explaining that Setsuna's personality is actually working against him. Setsuna's confused. What does he mean by that? He explains that to truly become one with nature, Setsuna needs to reach a trance-like state. He has to completely empty his mind to feel the spirits. Setsuna tries to concentrate again, but his mind just refuses to quiet down. It keeps wandering back to how much he's struggling, and how badly he just wants to get stronger. Seeing his struggle, the headmaster places a hand on his shoulder and tells him to relax, not to rush things. He explains that it took him 3 whole years to finally feel nature and connect with the spirits. But Setsuna panics. The god will appear in 5 years. They don't have that much time. The headmaster, patient as ever, asks him to explain. Setsuna says there's absolutely no time to lose. The apostles of the death god could appear at any moment, without any warning. The headmaster is surprised. Apostles, Setsuna starts to explain. He says that just like the death god, they come from a different world, and they possess special powers totally different from magic as they know it. And he's 100% sure that Leo is one of them. Setsuna remembers that before he traveled back in time, he only fought one apostle. That single opponent was insanely powerful, and even with all his strength, Setsuna barely managed to win using ranged magic. The headmaster just nods. He mentions that according to the Silverlock family's records, things are even worse. There are supposed to be 12 apostles in total, and yeah, you heard that right. Setsuna realizes this means there are others just like Leo, ready to bring destruction to their world. Seeing the deep concern on his face, the headmaster reassures him. He tells him there's no need to be so desperate. Fear and anxiety can actually invite disaster, and rushing in recklessly is just plain dangerous. Instead, he offers up a solution: joint training in the dungeon. He believes it would be the perfect opportunity for Setsuna to gain valuable insight and become much stronger. Setsuna is curious about this joint training and asks for more information. The headmaster tells him Lionel will explain all the details. This training will be Setsuna's best chance to push past his limits and level up. But he also warns him that it is not going to be easy at all. He advises Setsuna to get a good long rest before it begins. Now let's see what the other side is up to. Leo is dropped into a dimly lit, castle-like room. He apologizes for his tardiness and takes a cautious step forward. Zagan, the 10th apostle, scoffs that Leo has some nerve making them wait. He asks if Leo is still stuck in his same old arrogant ways. Hukka, the 9th apostle, hangs upside down from the ceiling, casually mentioning he heard Leo managed to get himself into some serious trouble, especially after Bagodi ran away from him. Pukka asks how Leo plans on cleaning up his own mess. All right, let's jump right into the villain's meeting. Leo, the 12th apostle, apologizes for the mess. He says he just had a great time catching up with an old friend and got a bit carried away. But Zan is furious, telling him to wipe that grin off his face before it gets on his nerves. The tension snaps. As their eyes lock, Zagan gets ready to attack. However, a voice cuts in from a distance, telling them to stop their foolishness. He calls their behavior shameful, especially for apostles of their rank. They are warned not to do anything that could interfere with their god's grand ambitions. They should have known better. This newcomer is Sataneaxia, the second apostle. He unleashes his power, pinning them both down with immense pressure, asking if they have more to say. Zan backs down but points at Leo, asking Sataneaxia what he plans to do. Specifically, how he'll deal with the boy they failed to finish off. He even offers to go and kill the boy himself. That gets a laugh from Puka. He chimes in that if they want an assassination, they should leave it to a real professional. He claims that if he's the one to do it, it'll be a true spectacle, but Sataneaxia cuts him off. That won't be necessary, he says, because he has already taken care of it. Now get this, he claims the person he assigned to the job will handle it in the end. A few days after the contest, we cut away to a classroom. Setsuna is sitting at his desk when Illa approaches him, looking concerned. She asks if he's really sure he's well enough for class. He just nods. He explains that just sitting and listening isn't too hard on his body. But Illa points out it's only been a few days since the final match ended. And he's already injured again. She asks if something has been bothering him lately. Setsuna's mind flashes back to his recent conversation with the headmaster. He had decided it was still too early to announce the existence of the death god. Instead, the headmaster chose to trust only a few select instructors with this information. Their mission was to guard the academy and find the rogue apostle, Leo. He also suggested that, for the time being, Setsuna should pause his elemental magic training. He snaps out of it, apologizing to Illa for asking her to make a remedy for him. He assures her he's fine, but inside his thoughts are a storm. He knows he needs to recover as quickly as possible to get back to his training. He clenches his fists, and you can practically feel his resolve to get better immediately. Illa sits down beside him, just as the instructor approaches the board to make an announcement. Now that it seems everyone is present, he brings up the upcoming joint training. The students start whispering, wondering what this new event is all about. Lionel explains it's a collaborative training exercise between all the departments. If the last contest was an opportunity to observe and learn different fighting styles, this training exercise would focus entirely on building effective teams. Students from various departments will have to work together to improve their own abilities. Setsuna immediately understands that the real goal here is to foster collaboration. Lionel then points everyone's attention toward the classroom projector. An image of a one-star underground dungeon appears on the screen. He explains that this is a perfect replica of a dungeon they might find in the real world. And because the risks involved are very real, participation will be strictly voluntary. The training will kick off in 1 week, so they should use the time wisely. They're advised to conserve their strength, and with that, the stage is set for the next arc. Joint training the headmaster mentioned, knowing he had to recover and get in top shape. Later that evening, once classes were done, Setsuna and Illa walked home together. She asks if he wants to grab dinner, reminding him he needs to eat to regain his strength. He wonders aloud what they should get, just as other students start to notice him. They recognize him instantly, the dark horse who won the intramurals. A total beast of a melee mage, one girl blushes, telling her friend she's had a crush on him. Ever since she saw that final, epic match, Illa points out that everyone's suddenly interested. And isn't it funny how not too long ago, every single one of them was calling him a loser? She steps in front of him, agreeing completely, when 3 other guys approach. One with blonde hair, flanked by 2 redheads, walks right up to Setsuna. Now pay attention here, because you can just feel the atmosphere change in an instant. The blonde-haired kid points at Setsuna, acknowledging him as this year's champion. Setsuna asks who he is. A redhead introduces the blonde as Carl, head of a noble salon. Apparently, they'd heard Setsuna was joining the Mage army right after graduation. So Carl extends an invitation to his exclusive salon, telling him to consider it a great honor. Setsuna has no idea what a salon even is, so Carl explains it's a social club. A club for mages from noble families, and definitely not a place for a melee mage like him. But he's willing to grant Setsuna special permission to join their ranks. Carl figures that having the tournament winner on board would seriously boost the salon's reputation. The girls watching from a distance start buzzing with excitement, completely hyped. They can't believe Setsuna is being recruited into the prestigious noble salon. Carl, with the smuggest look on his face, tells Setsuna an elite mage needs to be careful. Careful about who he's seen with, he then gestures toward Illa with pure disgust. He says hanging out with commoners like her could seriously damage his status. But Setsuna, without missing a beat, flat out rejects Carl's offer. The trio is stunned. Yeah, you and I both saw that coming, and it was glorious. This is far from over. He turns to leave, asking himself if background really matters that much anyway. He just looks at Illa and says, "Let's go." Carl is absolutely furious at the rejection. One of his lackeys even points out that's no way to talk to the tournament winner. But Carl, seething with rage, whips out a chain, his eyes burning with fury. He demands to know how Setsuna dares to insult the nobles, preparing to strike. He lunges forward, a blade flashing at the end of the chain, aimed right at Setsuna. But as Setsuna calmly turns, Illa steps in front of him, blocking Carl's path. She reminds him that dueling without permission is strictly against Academy rules. Then she looks him dead in the eye and says if anyone here is being rude, it's him. Carl freezes, snarling, questioning how a commoner like her dares to stop him. His two goons look worried, checking to see if their boss is okay after being shut down. Carl reluctantly pulls back and storms off with his crew, vowing to tell his father everything. Illa just smiles at Setsuna, who thinks to himself that she's getting stronger too. But just then another voice calls out his name. He turns, wondering who it could be now. It's a girl named Carla, who waves him over with a friendly smile. He tells her he's glad to see she's feeling better. Carla just beams back at him. She says it's all thanks to him, and that she wants to thank him properly. Then, with a slight blush, she asks him to come to her room for a little while. And with that invitation hanging in the air, you just know this story is about to get even crazier. Alright, let's jump into a rare wholesome moment. Carl welcomes Setsuna, Drago, and Illa in. She's making a meal to thank them for saving her, but it's going to take a bit. Setsuna, still feeling awkward, insists it's really not necessary. But Carl brushes it off, telling him if he just waits a little, the food will be ready. Illa immediately offers to help out, pointing out it's a huge task for just one person. Carl smiles, thanking her for the kind offer. Now, Illa originally thought Carl had only invited Setsuna over for the meal. But her mind couldn't help but wander to less innocent possibilities. Drago, completely lost, then asks why he was invited at all. Carl just beams, saying the more the merrier, so she and Illa head to the kitchen. Illa looks around, amazed, saying she's never seen a kitchen quite like it. She had no clue there were foods specifically for healing. Carl explains they're called recovery foods. Meanwhile, Setsuna looks around the room, his mind racing back to what the headmaster said. Carl has practically no memories of Leo. It could just be temporary amnesia from the shock. But there's a chance Leo managed to actually get inside her memories. And while he's relieved she's okay, Setsuna can't shake a bad feeling. A feeling that someone will come for her again, and you and I know he's probably right. Drago notices him spacing out, pointing out that Setsuna takes things way too seriously. He tells his friend to just try and relax for once. Setsuna considers it. But just then, a huge noise rips through the house from the kitchen. It sounded like an explosion. He panics, wondering if Carl and Illa are doing some intense training in there. Even Drago is caught off guard. Then Carl calls him into the kitchen for help. When he gets there, she hands him a frilly apron, and he's just like, seriously. She apologizes, explaining it's the only one she has left. And yeah, it's a maid's apron, so they get to cooking together and soon enough it's done. The food is finally served, and as Setsuna is about to dig in, Illa speaks up. She admits they might have gotten a little carried away and made way too much. But Setsuna just smiles, saying it all looks amazing, and since they worked so hard on it. He declares he's gonna finish every last bite. He takes a spoonful. He figures if he boosts his physical stats by eating, he can chow down as much as he wants. As he's stuffing his face, Illa comes over, asking if he's forcing himself. He just grins and reassures her it's all good, seriously good. Then he asks who made the egg soup, because the umami flavor is off the charts. A smug-looking Drago speaks up, happy that Setsuna likes his cooking. He says there's plenty more where that came from, so eat up. Setsuna immediately asks for more. Carl is in absolute shock. Her cooking actually lost to Drago's. They all keep enjoying the meal, and Setsuna thinks how nice this is. Spending quiet time like this with everyone, it feels familiar. It reminds him of the peaceful days before he traveled back, when his friends were all together. Happy and carefree, Vid was the one who destroyed that peace. But Setsuna swears to himself that will not happen this time. He won't lose to Vidra. Not again. 2 weeks pass, and trust me, this is where things get serious again. We cut to the day of the Dungeon Joint Training event. A massive crowd of students is hyped. They're all gathered at the dungeon gate, buzzing with excitement. Setsuna and Drago are there too. Drago looks over at his friend, commenting that he seems a lot healthier today. Setsuna agrees. Okay, let's dive back in. Setsuna's feeling a million times better, thanks to that recovery food from Drago. He was genuinely grateful, but Drago just assured him it was nothing, saying that's what friends are for. He did mention that the recovery food only really works if they eat it consistently. Setsuna thinks to himself, with Drago and his team, this dungeon training should be no problem at all. He knows he can fully trust the guy. Just then, a boy and a girl walk up. The boy asks if Setsuna and Drago have been part of the team for a while. Drago grins. Looks like the seniors are finally here. The boy introduces himself as Mun, a third-year student from the Formation Magic Department. He lets them know they'll be on the same team for this training mission. The girl, who'd been hiding her face, pulls back her hood to introduce herself as Yuzua, saying she's looking forward to working with them. Drago introduces himself from the Melee Magic Department, and Setsuna does the same. Mun claps them both on the shoulder, asking if Setsuna is the kid who won this year's big intramural contest. He smiles, saying it looks like they're in good hands, and he's counting on them. As Mun walks ahead, Drago leans over to Setsuna, saying that Mun seems way more fired up than he'd expected. Yuzua adds that it's nice of him to put the juniors at ease like that, but Mun just smirks. He hopes they appreciate the friendly act, because he won't be going easy on them from this moment on. Suddenly, the instructor's voice cuts in, saying it looks like all the students have finally arrived. Now, the interdepartmental training is about to begin. He introduces himself as Giovanni, their instructor for the session and a teacher in the Formation Magic Department. He explains that, as they all know, the Formation and Melee departments are teaming up for this training, and today, they're heading into the demonic ruins. It's a 1-star class dungeon, home to ancient monsters and all kinds of creatures. The students will have to work together if they want to defeat what's inside. Giovanni summons a bracelet, showing it off to the whole group. He explains that it's time for them to prove themselves, as their achievements will be recorded right on this device. They'll earn points every time they take down a monster or find some treasure. The team with the highest score at the end will receive a medal from the academy. And if any single person's score breaks 100 points, they'll get the chance to take part in the Royal Mage Army's elite field training. And that name, the Royal Mage Army, you and I know that hits different for Setsuna. It's where the kingdom's most powerful mages are. He met so many comrades there. If he can just get into that field training, he's sure he'll be able to see them all again. Giovanni continues, handing out a bracelet to every single student. He reminds them to stick to the areas that aren't too dangerous. If they ignore his advice, they could run into monsters far beyond their level. He also warns them to be extra careful. And whatever they do, do not go down to the lowest level of the dungeon. In case of an emergency, they need to channel their mana straight into the bracelet, which will trigger a teleportation spell and bring them safely back outside. Setsuna had already decided to aim for 100 points, but then he pauses. He and Drago both, at the exact same time, say they're aiming for 200 points. They lock eyes and you can feel it, the real contest just started. This was their chance. Setsuna agreed. Drago was absolutely right. Giovanni asks if everyone's ready, and with that, our team heads inside. The second the training starts, Setsuna and Drago bolt ahead of the pack. They're racing through the demonic ruins, a tough 1-star class dungeon. It's a massive underground structure built by some ancient civilization. And you know what that means, traps and treasure chests everywhere. Plus, monsters are crawling all over the place, ready to attack on sight. Setsuna knows, even with their teleportation magic, this won't be easy. Just then, Drago tells him to look up. A new path just opened. And what they find is absolutely incredible. A whole castle-like city, hidden in a massive underground cavern. Setsuna touches the wall, wondering if it's some kind of ancient plant. It seems a whole ecosystem has grown inside these very ruins. They remember the headmaster's words, a chance to become one with nature, promising huge rewards and deep insights into elemental magic itself. He's determined to use every second of this. The other students finally arrive. Min wonders what the big rush was, but Yuzuko spots something up ahead. The students start chattering amongst themselves, trying to figure out the path. One group heads down a path, with their leader claiming all the others are traps. But Min just calls them fools. He knows in this kind of training, you and I both know you're supposed to take the harder path. He points to another route, saying that's where they should go. And he's not wrong, their goal is to rack up the most points. But as Min calls for him, Setsuna feels something's off and touches a wall. It's a fake. Drago asks what's going on, and Setsuna points to the plants. The ones on this wall are growing at a totally different rate than the others. That means there has to be another space hidden right behind it. Maeve thinks it's a coincidence, but Setsuna hears it, the faint sound of wind. Now pay attention, because this one move changes their entire run. Drago doesn't wait, he just smashes the wall to see what's inside. A new path revealed, Setsuna gives the signal and they rush in. Min is impressed by their insight, thinking with any luck they'll score big. But as they head up the stairs, the dungeon's defenses kick in. A giant boulder comes crashing down straight for them. Setsuna draws his blade. One clean strike and he shatters it. The rubble flies down the stairs. Drago and Maeve are forced to dodge the flying chunks of rock. He looks at Drago, who's clenching his fists, totally fired up. He's determined to make an impression and show off the power of melee magic. Besides, there's no way he's letting Setsuna outdo him. Suddenly, a flash. A volley of arrows shoots right for them, but Setsuna dodges expertly. And in the next moment, he completely destroys the source. Drago is blown away. Setsuna is always one step ahead of the game. He figures if they clear all the traps like this, the seniors can follow easily. And then we all know what that means. He spots a chest. But before they can even move, Maeve uses his magic to pop it open. For his help snagging the treasure and earning 15 points. Drago was shocked, realizing whoever opens the chest is the one who keeps the loot. He swore he wouldn't let Mune get away with that again. Setsuna and Drago rushed ahead, but Drago felt something strange about a nearby wall. He smashed it open, revealing another treasure chest, but before he could even touch it, Mune used his magic to snatch it, bumping his score to 30 points, while Drago was still stuck at 0. As they pushed on, Drago faced a night obstacle. He attacked slicing off its arms and other parts, but in the end, Mune swooped in to take its head and steal 10 more points. After a while, Drago finally scored 10 points, while Yuzua also had 30. Mune, however, had already stolen more points from Drago, bringing his own total to 55, which left Drago furious. And trust me, this is where we see Mune's true colors. He told Drago he had zero awareness of his surroundings. He asked how many points he expected to get with that kind of mindset. Setsuna, with 25 points, just watched. The rules didn't say party members had to share items fairly. But he believed that stealing credit from your juniors was just wrong, and that the seniors should act with a little more integrity. Yuzua asked Mune if he heard that. Mune just scoffed, calling them losers who couldn't fight and could only complain about the rules. He pointed out that people were meant to be taken advantage of. And if they're so upset, why not try using their skills on him? He taunted them, saying despite their complaints, they lacked the ability to actually do it. Setsuna thought to himself that he can't underestimate Mune. He looked over at Yuzua, wondering why she'd been so focused on just attacking monsters. Didn't she care about racking up points? Could she possibly have another motive? As they continued, Yuzua had 50 points, while Mune was leading with a solid 80. Mune boasted that after a few more wins, he'd have all the points he could possibly need. Setsuna had 35 and Drago was still stuck at 10. They walked into a dimly lit room, and Setsuna felt an unsettling presence in the air. In the center, an object was sitting on a throne. Now don't blink, because this is the moment everything goes wrong. Mune used his magic to grab it, but a dark aura immediately erupted from the treasure, leaving Mune totally confused. Setsuna instantly knew what was happening and rushed forward, pulling Mune away just in time as a powerful beam shot out from the treasure. A hand emerged from the chest, followed by a terrifying monstrous creature. Even though this was supposed to be a simple one-star dungeon, the monster's presence and sheer power felt way more menacing than anything they had faced so far. Setsuna understood immediately. It was the No-Life King, a monarch of death. He could hear the dark flames whisper that it's free, ready to trap anyone it strikes in a living nightmare. The monster growled, asking who dared interrupt its slumber, warning that they would all pay with their lives. Drago was shocked that the monster could actually speak. Setsuna quickly warned Drago that it was extremely dangerous. You and I both know this is where the real fight begins. He told Drago to stay back and let him handle it. But Drago, obsessed with points, wondered out loud how many he would get if he defeated the creature. The monster unleashed an attack straight at Mune, but Setsuna rushed in to intercept it, slashing. Drago goes on the attack, throwing a punch, but the monster just conjures a barrier, stopping him cold. And trust me, you can already see how huge the power gap is here. He's shocked it could cast a magic circle from that far away. As he stumbles back, he realizes that Monoguard armor probably just saved him from a serious injury. Furious, the monster charges right at them, roaring that it's going to finish them. It casts multiple magic circles all at once. Setsuna immediately analyzes the threat. With that kind of intelligence and magic, this thing is at least a 4-star monster. All the attacks launch at once, and a magic circle appears right in front of Mine. Setsuna screams at him to snap out of it, just as Drago slices through the magic circle, saving him from the blast. Mine finally comes to his senses, and Drago offers a hand to get him up. Mine takes it to stand, but just then, Setsuna spots it. 2 more magic circles are materializing right around Yuzua, and she isn't moving. Just standing completely still. Without a second thought, Setsuna leaps to snatch her and pull her out of the way. He asks if she's all right, and she just nods, thanking him. But Setsuna feels a chill. Something is off with Yuzua. You can see it too, right? He wonders if he's imagining things. Meanwhile, Drago is busy slicing through magic circles, trying to clear a path. Setsuna touches his bracelet and tells Drago it's time to use that. Drago gets it instantly, replying that he was thinking the exact same thing. Min, however, has absolutely no clue what they're talking about. He just figures it's none of his business and only cares about snatching the points and getting out of here. Drago looks over at Min, asking if he's planning on pulling that stunt again. And yeah, we all know he's lying, but Min denies it, claiming he wouldn't. Not to the person who just saved his life. He says he'll do the opposite and help them, but only so he can steal all the points for himself. Drago, however, is done playing games. He's not letting Min steal his points this time. Setsuna, meanwhile, is thinking back to his fight with Leo in the final blue field. He realized his charged bullet wasn't as strong as it should have been, and that mistake cost him the entire match. It taught him a valuable lesson. You have to master the basics before you can get stronger. Setsuna then remembers his talk with Lionel. Right after he and Drago had finished their court training. They asked if there was anything else they could do to become even stronger. Lionel sighed, like he had no choice but to tell them about something he'd been holding onto. Magically weighted bands. He explained that if they wore these bands during all their training, they would build up an incredible amount of strength. And once they finally took them off, their physical abilities would just explode. However, he gave Setsuna a specific warning not to overdo it, since he still wasn't fully recovered. He stressed that this was an old-school brute force training method, so they had to be smart about it. Setsuna and Drago thanked him for the advice. And now, in the middle of this insane battle, Setsuna knows it's time. It's time to remove the bands they've been wearing ever since. Both he and Drago throw them to the ground. Min stares in disbelief. They were wearing those this whole time. The monster conjures another magic circle, getting ready for another attack. But their restrictions are gone, and trust me, you're about to see Setsuna and Drago finally activate their power. With a physical boost, they charge the monster at blinding speed. They weave through its attacks effortlessly, hitting back with swift and devastating strikes. Drago launches himself at the beast, aiming a powerful kick, but the creature actually manages to block it. Drago just smirks. That block might have worked a minute ago, but it's way too late now. Before the monster can react, Setsuna and Drago land a crushing blow at the same time, and you and I are with Mifune on this one. How are they this skilled? A massive explosion rocks the entire area. When the dust settles, the no-life king is finally defeated. Their points shoot up by 50 each. Drago guesses the points were split evenly since they took the monster down together. Mifune, still in shock, can barely process what he just witnessed. Was this the true limit of their power? He'd never seen a melee magic student even close to their level. Just then, Setsuna turns to call for Yuzua, but she's nowhere to be seen. Then suddenly, the ground trembles violently. A powerful earthquake shakes the entire dungeon as cracks spiderweb across the floor. Mifune loses his balance and is about to fall, but Setsuna catches him. Then they see it. Now pay attention, because a swarm of terrifying monsters is appearing in the distance. The creatures roar, their eyes glowing with rage, and in seconds they lunge right at the students. Panic spreads as everyone scrambles to escape. Setsuna's heart pounds. What in the world is happening here? As the monsters close in, Setsuna, Drago, and Mifune start cutting them down. Setsuna shouts an order. They should only focus on the monsters' heads. As Mifune eliminates them, he notices they aren't gaining any points from the kills. He quickly realizes if Setsuna hadn't figured that out, they would have wasted all their time fighting these useless creatures. While fighting, Setsuna deduces that monsters revived with dark power don't give any points because they just keep resurrecting over and over. Drago agrees these things are completely worthless. Mifune then comments that you'd never see monsters like this in a one-star dungeon. That's when Setsuna senses a powerful aura emanating from below. He asks the others if they can feel that sinister magic rising from beneath them. Mifune, unsure, asks if Setsuna is just imagining it, but Setsuna is absolutely certain. He thinks the source might be Yuzua. Drago decides to head down first. Mifune hesitates, wondering if he should follow, Setsuna tells him it isn't a choice. He then asks Mifune what exactly he plans on doing up here alone. Mifune feels a little insulted, as if his competence is being questioned. But then Setsuna points out that his only real skill is stealing points from the junior students before heading downstairs himself. Mifune notices that the monsters are still pouring in and mutters there's nothing he likes about this training. Reluctantly, Mifune follows after Setsuna. As he watches Setsuna and Drago fight, he can't help but notice their perfect synchronization. He wonders if this is really their first time training together. Drago, noticing Mifune's muttering, calls him out for being so talkative, but Mifune just says that it's better than listening to the groans of the undead. Setsuna continues toward the source of mana he sensed, and trust me, you are not ready for what they find. The monster responsible, realizing it might be the true source of all this dark power. And stick with me, because this dungeon is way more twisted than it looks. Setsuna notes it's a new eyeball monster, powered by a magic circle deep inside. Mune, sensing the others are clueless about dungeon strategy, tells them to just follow his light. As Drago stretches out his arms, he accidentally smacks Mifune and quickly apologizes. Setsuna lands the final blow on the monster, scoring an easy 10 points. Suddenly, a rumbling sound echoes through the halls. Drago wonders if the undead are on their way. Setsuna figures they must have sensed their power source was under attack, and they're coming to defend it. Time to rack up some points. Drago is more than ready, eager to blow off some steam on the undead horde. Mune just watches, wondering how Setsuna and Drago can be so fearless while he, a mere student, is just standing there shaking in his boots. All he wants is to get his 100 points and get the hell out of there. That's when Setsuna asks Mifune where Yuzua went. Mune just shrugs, guessing she probably got scared and ran away. But Setsuna isn't buying it. Yuzua didn't even flinch against the no-life king. He's been getting a really strange vibe from her this whole time. Plus, these monsters aren't typical for a one-star dungeon, that dark magic. Something is seriously wrong. Now, here's the part you and I need to watch carefully. He suspects one of the apostles might be pulling the strings from the shadows. If he's right, then having Drago and Mune here is incredibly dangerous. He can only hope that Illa and the other students are safe. Just then, Drago spots the undead mob and tells them it's hunting time. He starts plowing through them, with Setsuna and Mune backing him up. After the dust settles, Setsuna has 225 points, Drago has 210, and Mune has 125. Finally, Mune decides he's leaving. Drago calls him out, asking if he's just gonna abandon his friend Yuzua. Mune explains they literally just met yesterday. You and I both know a guy like this, right? He thought she was a weirdo for even trying to be friendly. He figures she panicked and is probably outside crying somewhere by now. But as Mune tries to bail, Setsuna tells Drago they both have to find Yuzua. Mune starts complaining that his teleportation isn't activating. Setsuna deadpans that he should just walk back, leaving Mune totally stunned. Reluctantly, Mune tags along with the others. Drago points out the transportation spell isn't working for any of them. Something must be wrong with their bracelets. Setsuna again feels that sinister magic. He tells Drago he's going on ahead to find Yuzua, saying he'll be fine alone. Mune, completely missing the point, asks if Setsuna has a crush on her. Drago just tells Setsuna not to worry and that he'll help him search. Setsuna agrees, but warns Drago to bolt the second he senses any real danger. Mune, still trying to bail, thinks they should just go back and report this. After all, there's no proof Yuzua is even still down here. But Setsuna shuts him down. It's faint, but he can definitely still sense her mana. He tells Mifune to go inform Giovanni about what's happening, and what happens next, trust me. To get back safe, but Mune was just annoyed, thinking Yuzua probably ran off on her own. It felt too dangerous to push forward, but you know what? It's even riskier to try and escape alone. He could feel it, everything was just going wrong. Drago put a hand on his shoulder. Look, let's find Yuzua, then we hide together.